Hey folks, welcome back to the Transplant Helper again today. My name is Jim Merle, and I'm excited to have you here with me again today as a part of our brand new series entitled My Story, My Words. And just like all the other programs so far, and I suppose all of them will be as well, we've got a great guest in store for us today. His name is Ron Harbour. He's a Texas native. That's about all you need to say about him. I'm an Alabama guy. He's a Texas guy, and we're a lot alike in a lot of ways. Ron has a story to tell us today about his heart transplant journey, particularly how things didn't exactly go perfectly after transplant, and ultimately is going to talk to us a lot about the need for organ donation, because even though the heart that he has is doing pretty well now, and it certainly has given him an extended life, his kidneys took a turn for the worse. So he's actually on the waiting list now for a kidney transplant, and I'm hoping that you can be inspired to help, or at least to call upon someone to want to help, and we'll get Ron to living another decade or 2 or 3 or 4 or however long you'd like to, Ron. That's what we would like to do. But Ron, I appreciate you being with me today on the program. I'm looking forward to you telling me your story, and I think a good way to start off with that would be just to simply ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning, Jim. I would appreciate it. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm a very simple gentleman. I'm from Texas. I went to Texas A&M. Arch rivals now your Alabama team, but that's all right. We'll save that for another day. But I went to Texas A&M. I've worked all my life, and my heart journey started when I got divorced and I started gaining a lot of weight. And when we're talking a lot of weight, I'm talking my highest was 569 pounds.
Wow.
And at that point, I did not realize I could do anything that I wanted to. I just did it very slow.
Right.
You know, if the kids wanted to go swimming, I went swimming. I just walked a little slower. And so it led on, and so all of a sudden I had a heart attack. One day my second wife, was at work, and about 8 o'clock that morning I woke up and I couldn't breathe. I didn't feel the elephant on the chest or anything like you think you're going to. Nothing hurt, but I couldn't breathe. And so I called her, and she said, well, call the emergency room. So I called the ambulance, and they came up, and they came in and diagnosed that, yes, I was having a heart attack.
Wow.
The problem was we, at that point, still were living in our motorhome. We had recently retired, both of us, and had been traveling the United States in our motorhome, and we were in our motorhome. Well, they couldn't, because I was so large, they couldn't get the gurney in to get me out of the motorhome. So the paramedic came up to me and said, I hate to ask you this, sir, but do you mind walking outside and so we can put you on a gurney? And I said, no problem. So I walked outside, and they put me on a gurney, and I went off and had a couple of stents put in. Mm-hmm. And at that point, they ruled that I had congestive heart failure, and I started the process of trying to lose a little bit of weight, get some of this fluid off. I'd gone to the hospital. I'd been at the hospital having the fluid removed from me. And my wife came up for a visit on a Sunday afternoon. Mm-hmm. And we were there, and we walked what we called the course, which was around the nurse's station. Everybody would take laps. And so we walked that, and we got back to the room, and I was watching a ball game or something, and the nurse came in and said, Mr. Harbour, I need to check your leads. And I said, okay. And she said, something's wrong. It's just they're not functioning right, because as you well remember, we all wore the EKG leads that could show anywhere in the hospital what was going on. So I said, fine. I lifted up my shirt. She said, no. I need to probably change them. Why don't you come get in bed and sit down and lay down, and I'll change them. So I did. So as soon as my rear end hit the bed, I walked over, and as soon as my rear end hit the bed, I flatlined.
Wow.
And I remember to this day, it will be emblazoned in my head forever, I remember looking at Carla at the very end and seeing Carla is my wife, the sheer panic in her eyes. And I went away. And next thing I know, when I came back to, I had a bunch of nurses and doctors all around me shouting this and that and this and that, and getting punched by the defibrillator when it hit. So at that point, they determined that, well, I had to get to the ICU, cardiac ICU, and they at that point they took me to the cardiac ICU, and I stood there, and the cardiac can't even say the word.
Cardiologist.
The cardiologist, thank you, Jim, came in and said, basically, Mr. Harbour, there's nothing we could do.
Yeah. Okay, so let me pause you there for just a minute. You were, at the time you're telling this, are you still at the 500-something pound range?
Yes,
Oh,
569.
wow. Well, I can go ahead and fill in the blank. We've got a journey to talk about to get away from that before transplant ever comes.
Yeah.
But
no, this is the easy part.
Okay.
That part's the easy part. They then determined that there was nothing I could really do, so they decided to send me downtown to the doctor said, I only know one place to send you. I don't know if they're going to be able to help or not, but let's send you down there. So I went down. I was then scheduled to go downtown. Then arise problem number two. Problem number two was they didn't have a gurney in the ambulances that was big enough to carry me.
Wow.
So we had to wait until a gurney got in to carry me down to the hospital. And the way that they kept me alive was, the defibrillators that they jump you with, they had to tape them on me. So every 15 minutes they jolted me just to keep my heart beating. So I got downtown, and immediately went in and had a defibrillator and a pacemaker put in immediately.
Okay.
And at that point, the next morning, we didn't know anything was going to happen. The next morning, the surgeons came in and said, well, we can do a quadruple bypass, and it may work, but probably in 6 months you'll be back in. And so we don't really suggest it. It's like, okay. And then I remember Dr. Carr, one of my surgeons, he looked at me and he said, don't worry, Mr. Harbour, we'll save your life. That's all I remember. If my wife hadn't have been there, this story would have probably ended right there, because I don't remember anything more other than he was going to save my life. Thank you. But he said, the problem is we're going to need to put you on an LVAD, and explained what an LVAD was. And he said, we'll put you on an LVAD and you're going to need a transplant. Well, again, I knew nothing about transplant. I'm from a little town that's got 3,000 people in it. I probably to this day is probably the only one, if not two other people that have had heart transplants.
Right.
So it's not a very common thing in my little neighborhood.
Well.
So he at that time said, you need a transplant, but to keep you alive, we're going to give you an LVAD. And then the other surgeon said, but we have a real problem. And we looked at him like, okay, what? And he said, your weight.
Yeah.
We have to get some weight off of you.
Okay. So my next question was going to be, how were you first introduced to transplant? And it sounds like this is it. It was a wow moment for you because you're not familiar with the process.
Nobody had ever mentioned the word transplant to me.
Oh, yeah.
It was totally by shock. And so they said, okay, what we're going to do is put an LVAD, but we're going to do something that we at this hospital have never done before. And I looked, and I'm looking at Carla, and she's looking at me, and he said, we're also going to do a gastric sleeve at the same time.
Ah.
So I was very lucky to be the very first person in Memorial Hermann, the hospital I went to, history to have a gastric sleeve and an LVAD at the same time, same operating room.
Yeah, I mean,
They basically did.
Yeah, and it's absolutely necessary because as much of the people who might be watching this would understand, in order to get a transplant, you've got to be within a certain. There's a lot of other numbers to go with it, obviously, but a certain BMI
lot of
and
body
such.
mass,
Yeah,
different BMI. Got to be. You almost got to be. You have to be near death or pretty healthy to get a transplant.
that's true. You've got to be sick enough to need it and well enough to get it.
Yes, sir. So as a result, they then go do their natural things and put it in the computer to the insurance company that this is what I need. Well, of course, the insurance company, my insurance policy said no. We don't do gastric sleeve. That's cosmetic surgery. So for a month, while they argued whether or not I was going to be qualified for gastric sleeve, why I needed one, I laid in bed with a external defibrillator and pacemaker. Mm-hmm. And finally, the head surgeon came in one day and said, "We haven't heard yet." And I said, "No, sir." He got on the phone. He said, "Look, this kid," and he got to their medical director, mm-hmm. and he said, "This kid is going to die if we don't do this." And to be quite truthful, I'm not sure he's going to make it off the table in the first place.
Right.
So they agreed to let me go ahead and do it. So I went in and got my defibrillator and gastric sleeve. That was November 13th.
Yeah. And you know, not to get you or me the one started, but this is just a sad case of where big insurance companies and all that and such are. I mean, I wouldn't think, we're just common sense people, but I would not think that it would take me very long to look at a piece of paper, see, you know, just have an idea of what being qualified to have a transplant was, see this man and his current weight and say, okay, this is a have-to thing. I mean, it would be for anybody. Anyone who weighs over 500 pounds could benefit from some sort of assistance in bringing some of that weight down. Transplant aside, but with needing a transplant or an LVAD is the immediate need, it has to be approved. It should have been approved. So they decided to go ahead, and this was on a Thursday. They decided that Friday. Fridays are my lucky days for some reason. They decided that Friday to take me in for the LVAD and gastric sleeve. Okay. So they did, and all went well. It went very well, except the next morning, that Saturday morning, the gastric sleeve surgeons came in and said, you know, normally you go through a 6-month to a year process of getting qualified for gastric sleeve. You have to go through psychological and testing and all. I said, but we didn't do that for you. And oh, by the way, we haven't told you what you can eat or what you can't eat anymore. So they started giving me instructions then on what to do and how to do it. Well, very fortunately, it was like putting a stick of butter on a hot skillet and watching it melt away. I went from November of 13 to I got qualified for my heart transplant in August of 14. Wow.
And I had lost, in that short of time, I'd lost almost 200 pounds. At that point, I qualified barely, but I qualified. So they put me on the list, and I kept losing, but they put me on the list. That was August the 15th. And on September the 30th, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I was awoken by my coordinator, my LVAD coordinator, and his name was Reuben, and he was always a nice guy. He was almost like family to us. And he would always call, and the first thing he'd ask, you know, I had a dog that I loved dearly. He'd ask how Zeus was, and he'd ask how Carla would do it. And we'd chit-chat a little, and then he'd get down to the business he needed to talk about. Well, that morning, I said, "Hi, Reuben, what's up?" And he'd go, "I have a heart. Do you want it?" And
we'll take it.
I thought to myself, and I said, yes. Do I qualify? Yes. He said, be down here in 4 hours.
Okay.
And he said, I'll give you all the instructions and just be down here in 4 hours. Don't eat anything. And so he hung up. So I called my wife and got her home. And then the natural state of going downtown, we're going to get a new heart. And so walked in downtown, and here with my Alvad, they told me to bring all my batteries and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I came in downtown, and needless to say, it was the hurry up and wait syndrome.
So again, to ask about those dates, how long was your wait then from being actually?
My wait was actually a month and a half.
Okay. Hey, not
from the
not
time
bad
I
at
was
all.
qualified.
Right, which you had to get the weight down, and you had some hoops to
Yeah, I
jump
was
through.
extremely lucky. My wait time for my heart was extremely lucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so October 1st is what I call my heart day, my birthday.
Right.
Because the time I got out of surgery, surgery was, I thought, again, being naive, I thought I'd get down there in 4 hours and be ready and we'd go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, that didn't happen. You got down there and you started doing more tests, and they had to go get the heart, and the heart was in Louisiana. So they had to, jet over to Louisiana and pick up the heart, verify it and all. And they brought it back. And needless to say, about midnight, 1 o'clock that morning, I was wheeled into the operating room.
Right.
At 11 o'clock the next morning, I was wheeled out of the operating room. And I'd been blessed with a brand new heart, or a heart of a 29-year-old. What I didn't realize that was going to happen was all my other organs, my lungs, my kidneys, my liver, every other organ in your body except my brain had shut down.
Oh.
Because it was like they said, we don't want to play with this new kid, so we're going to go on strike. And so they had to induce me into a coma for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And during the 2 weeks, I just laid there in bed. Didn't get up, didn't move. I was out. I was gone. What happened that 2 weeks? I have to ask my wife because I don't remember anything.
Right.
What I do remember is when they started taking out the tubes, and they brought me out of the coma, and they started taking out the tubes, and I had that first gasp of air, of real air, not induced air, and I thought, is this worth it or not? That was the first question that came to my mind. Is all this really worth it, or would it have been better for me just to go on? And at that point, I had a doctor that happened to be in, and I asked him that question. Mm-hmm. He said, let me tell you, you're going to go through hell right now. But he said, someday you're going to wake up. I can't tell you if it'll be tomorrow or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But he said, someday you'll wake up and you'll say, it's all been worth it.
Yeah.
Well, the part of the story that I didn't tell you, the most traumatic part of the story that I haven't said yet, was while you're laying on the bed for 2 weeks and you're not being moved, what happens to the body is it starts breaking down. Right. And where it broke down on me was right at my rear end. I got a bed sore that was about 5 inches wide and about 2 inches deep. So I could not walk. I couldn't get out of bed and walk or anything. I had to be assisted everywhere I went. So for the first 6 months of my heart transplant, my kidneys, everything came back preempt. Everything came back running normal, my lungs and everything, except my kidneys. My kidneys were what they called a sleepy kidney. They were functioning. I could still make urine, but I was not filtering the blood like I needed to. So as a result, they put me on dialysis at that time.
Okay.
And whenever I came home, and whenever I finally came home, I was still not walking. The ambulance would have to come get me, take me to dialysis, or take me to the weekly medical checkups. that we all went through, and every place I went to was by ambulance.
Wow.
And it wasn't until June of that year that my wife is a school teacher, and she came home from school basically, and she said, "Look, I don't care if it takes us all day. You're going to walk from our bedroom at that time in our house, from our bedroom to the couch, and that's about 45 steps." She said, "I don't care if it takes all day or what we have to do. That's going to be our goal."
Yay, good
So
for
that's
her.
what we off to do. And
we need cheerleaders like that. We need somebody to help.
Exactly. I've always said the hardest part of the heart transplant is not for the patient. It's easy for us. And I mean that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because we get drugs. If we have a pain, they give us drugs. It's the caregiver that has the hard time, because
Amen.
they're usually somebody that loves you, and they're having to sit there and watch you suffer.
Right.
And they're having to sit there and watch you go through things that they have no control. And I remember seeing Carla go out of the bedroom and go into the next room and just sit there and cry. And my heart would break, because I thought I'd done something. And it wasn't that I had done anything. It's just that I was helpless and she was helpless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just us, guys. What are we going to do?
Yeah, and that bed sore, I mean, until you've experienced it, obviously some may not understand, but that, and as it was for you, can be a humongous setback. One of the biggest keys to recovering from transplant is how quickly can we get up and get moving. And because of the other issues that led to the bed sore, which led to a little longer, but the support system that you had, your wife was great in that, to be able to push you and have.
Remember I told you I was 569 pounds
Right.
when this started? I dwindled to 174 pounds.
Wow.
And honestly, I looked like the pictures. The only way I know to describe it, Jim, is the pictures that you see of the people at the consecration camps when they're so frail. That's how I looked. And it was at that point that they were now worried that we'd gone too far. And so we did. We worked all summer, and I got to be able to walk to the couch, and I'd lay on the couch, and at 9:00 every night, our neighbor would come over, and because my wife couldn't, he would come over and he would help lift me off the couch, and we'd walk back to the bedroom 9:00 every night. It was like routine. And then all of a sudden, I had that aha moment that Dr. Carr had told me about.
Mm-hmm.
Because until then, it was really and truly, why in the world did I do this?
Yeah, I've been there.
Did I ever screw up? Why didn't they just take the plug and unplug it? And you really do. And depression was horrible, but I got that aha moment, and I thought, no, I've been given this heart for a reason. I don't know what the reason is. Didn't at the time. I thought I didn't. And it was like, then the quest started for me was, why have I been given this heart? Why have I been given a second chance a lot?
Outstanding outlook. Yes, outstanding. And you see these posts where you remember some of the Facebook groups I am, and every now and then there'll be a post where someone will say, "Did you ever regret it? Did you ever think you'd made a mistake?" And there are a few people that understand. Well, we all understand it. There are a few people who will comment and say, "Yes, been there, done that. It's hard. It'll get better." There's always that nasty person who's like, "Oh, it's a gift. You shouldn't." I despise that attitude, because we're all going through such a journey emotionally, and it takes.
Exactly. I don't understand the attitude, because the pain that you go through and the remembering how you did live life, even though I was heavy, I lived life. I could go fishing, I could go hunting, I could do anything I wanted to, and not being able to lift your leg out of bed.
Yeah.
Little things like that, not being able to comb. I can remember the first time I combed my hair because of the drugs we were on, clumps of hair came out. And I thought, what is this? Again, I always say, this is why programs like, what I do, and I'll get into that a little later for you if you want to, and what you do are so important, because the doctors are there to save our lives.
Mm-hmm.
The doctors are not there to answer every little question we have. What can we do? Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we do, coordinators have a hard job. Nurses have an even harder job because they're getting all the questions. But I can remember when that aha moment came, and it's when I first could step outside, and I thought, I'm doing this alone. I've got no wires. For almost a year, for 9 months or so, I had 2 wires from the LVAD coming out, and I had to carry a battery pack with me at all times. And so it was a remarkable.
Well, I'm a terrible interviewer right now because I'm so interested in listening to you, but I was supposed to ask you, tell us about your recovery. And if you hadn't heard him say it already, his recovery was rough. I mean, it was rough, and it took a lot of drive and motivation from yourself and from others, particularly your family. But you've made progress.
You have to have a support person. You have to have a cheerleader in your realm, because if you don't, the will to live is in all of us, but there's times that will to live, you wonder where it's gone.
Right.
And I can just remember the first time that I got to see family, and and you don't realize, because I've been so blessed since then, because I've gotten to see weddings of my kids. I've gotten to have the blessings of being a grandparent. Just the whole chase was the greatest thing I ever could do. I wasn't able to go there for either their wedding or the birth of the child because I couldn't travel. But you learn, and you and once you learn that, you want to share it with other people, because again, we're all scared when we get there. Some people don't realize that, and some people won't admit it. But we're all petrified. We're scared. We don't know what's going on. The worst thing about any medical situation is not knowing what's going to happen down the future.
Absolutely.
If they could have laid it all out to us and said, now, on month 1, 2, and 3, you're going to have this problem. On month 7, you'll have this problem. That'd be fine. But the first year of my recovery was not only hell because of the bedroom, but getting over that, it was just going to clinic every week, having the meds adjusted every week. You're thinking, why can't we get this right? And then all of a sudden, it all clicks. And I don't know a better way to describe that, is when it all clicks, it's like, this is how it was meant to be. And it really does it either makes you a bitter person or makes you a stronger person.
Right.
And I believe it made me a stronger person.
It certainly sounds like it, yeah.
Because number one, I value life so much now. It's just different. I look at things different. I look outside and see the birds and the weather. I mean, the weather here today, right now, as we speak, is 34 degrees. It's not a beautiful day, but yeah, it is a beautiful day. Any day that I see green when I wake up, it's a beautiful day.
Yes.
Everybody always asks me, well, what are you planning to do? And I say, well, first of all, I don't plan real long range. I plan for the next time period. And because I'm living basically like I always say I'm living on borrowed life. I'm a very lucky person.
Yeah, it's a gift. Well, let me insert this, and it's a part of the recovery question for you because I do want you to be sure to specifically bring it out. Ron had this heart transplant 6.5 years ago, roughly. Had the difficulty, has the kidneys that are sleepy, quote. So you are in need of a kidney transplant. You're on a kidney transplant list now, right?
I'm A positive. I'm on a list. I'm on the UNIS list. The sad part about kidney transplants are not like heart transplants or any other kind of transplants. They are considered elective surgery because you can go and be on dialysis, which I go to 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'm there for 3.5 hours, hooked up to a machine, having it filter my blood, and you do that every week. That is my week. The gauge needle that they use, because of the need that I need, the gauge that they use for me is a 14 gauge needle. And if I was to describe that needle, if you were to go and pick up a finishing nail that they use in building houses, that's about the size of what my needle looks like. And it's jabbed in my arm twice, 2 times, 2 times, 3 times a week.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here fiddling. I'm fiddling with an ink pen.
I'm
very
very blessed because I am able to drive there. I'm able to walk in, walk out. I live a normal life. Yes, I need a kidney. I would do anything to get a live kidney, a donor kidney would be another gift from God. But I have bound and determined myself that I'm going to live the best life that I can, the most productive life that I can, meanwhile.
Yeah. Well, let me say then for sure, then everybody who potentially might listen or whatever, you just heard a portion. We're not quite done, but you just heard a portion of the drive, the get up and go, the determination, all that Ron has done to get to this point and to bring him to this point. And he's so close to having the best life he's had in a long time, much longer than 6.5 years, but so close to that. And so it needs someone, whether you be someone who wants to reach out and try to get in touch with Ron and his team and the medical people and make a direct donation. Sometimes that works. Or better yet, even almost, if you would just be willing to be one of those people who determines to give something of yourself to donate. I'm not saying this is easy, so don't misunderstand, but there are a lot of great people out there that have been living donors and they donate a kidney. They can be fine with their other. They donate a kidney, and what they get started is a kidney chain, which can eventually, not to try to explain it all, but can help a man like Ron indirectly because of the kidney swap and the kidney chain. So you can impact so many lives with this, so many, if you'd be willing.
No, I implore people to be on a donor's list, on an organ transplant list, no matter your age, your health, because they can use parts of our body for things that we would never even think of. And why in the world do we take it when we do take that last breath and we die? Why are we taking it with us? There are so many people out here in the world that need help, that need different organs, that need skin, that need tissue, eyes. We could go on and on, Jim, how much of a need there is. And it's not about politics, it's not about religion, it's not about anything but helping mankind, helping our other person. And if we can do that by just smiling, the little neighborhood that I live in, people never understand that I've been through what I've been through, because unless they know that I've been a heart transplant person, they never know it, because I don't I don't parade it. It's a fact of life what happened. So what happens is I try to help as much as I can in any way I can. There are limitations. I don't climb on ladders anymore and things like that. So, you know, you have to be willing to give up a little bit of pride, in the sense of, used to, I would do anything by myself, for myself, never ask anybody for any help. Now you have to buckle down, and it's okay to ask for help. You learn a lot of lessons. You learn a lot of life lessons in this process. It's so much more than just the organ. The organ keeps us alive, but you're learning lessons and basically how to live a better life.
For sure. Well, let me ask you this, and this may be difficult or easy. I don't know. You can answer both or pick one. But what would you say are the best and the worst things about transplant for you personally? The best and the worst.
The worst is the unknown, because you're told you need one, but you're not told what it's going to entail. Because with every patient, I believe, we all go through it different. Your transplant, yes, you and I are brothers in one way. We both have transplants, but your recovery, your journey is so much different than mine. It's so much different than everybody you had on this program. But that's good. That makes us unique. To me, that was the worst. Is like I said, the pain wasn't the worst, because they could always give me something for pain. And the best, to be honest with you, and I'll try to say this without crying, is the second that I walked in with my wife and I picked up a 4-month-old baby that I wasn't supposed to even be able to see ever. And I picked that baby up and held Chase in my arms.
Yes.
To this day, that was the best day in the world, because it showed me then that life was worth living. I haven't been lucky enough, like some, to meet my donor's family. In fact, we have found out that my donor's family are no longer living. They were older, and the gentleman was about 24 years old, in that range, 24 to 26. But the donor, his parents have passed away. So the greatest joy would have been to hand them a stethoscope and said, "Remember Tom, or remember Susie? Listen to her. She's doing just fine." Yeah. And, those are the two.
Yeah, I've had that privilege, and it is the most touching, heart-wrenching. I don't know. It's all of the good and bad of the whole eternity wrapped into one. But I was able to do that, and so you're right. So it's opportunities.
You're so lucky.
It's opportunity.
I mean, as one that's never gotten that chance, when I have friends or people that I've worked with that get to meet their donor family, there's always that little bitty part of me that is jealous, because I would love to meet, been able to meet mine. But it's all right, because there's not a day goes by that in the morning when I say my prayers, I don't thank them for another day.
Amen to that.
Because through their unselfishness, I'm able to live a life. And there are days that are bad. Yeah, there are some days that you wake up, and I wake up, and my wife knows, just leave me alone. It's a bad day. It's not going to be a good day. But those are very far and few between when you really look at the whole picture. They're very, very far few between. And that's my story, Jim. I am grateful. We have become an advocate now for in the heart area. I'll add just a little bit. We're in the process of, we help people that are going through the process, because it is so expensive to get these organs. Little things like, because typical people that get organ transplants are sometimes in the hospital for 2 or 3 months, if not longer. And parking downtown Houston, parking at the hospital is $16 a day.
Yeah.
Whether you're there for 1 minute, or you're there for 11 hours and 59 minutes, or 24 hours and 59, or 23 hours and 59 minutes, it's still that amount. So what we've done is we have created a foundation that we raise money, and I dole out the money basically to people that are going through the process. We tell them immediately when we first meet the people that I'm not a doctor, so don't ask me if I can take an aspirin or anything, because I'm not going to tell you. I won't tell you. I'm there for support. I'm there to answer questions. I'm there to help you get through this journey, because I had a person that came into my life during my journey and without him, who knows where I'd be today.
Yeah.
He was there as a support. And sometimes you need more than just your caregiver, because they get tired. Yeah. They get worn out. But they were able to help me. So I'm very happy in where we're doing now.
How can someone assist you in particularly your fundraising, or whatever you would call that, to assist with those external
Well,
expenses?
We're in the process of going through the lovely process of our government of going to making ourselves a 504. So we're not able to yet. I'm not able really yet to, what I say, take donations.
Right.
Hopefully this year we'll be able to, and I'll keep you in tune for that. But
yeah, please.
What we do now, as crazy as it sounds, and I know you're going to have some people that say that's the most stupid thing I've ever heard, but I have a warehouse that I have bought more stuff in the world than you want to care to talk about, and we sell on eBay.
Hey, there
Our
you go.
store on eBay is Harbor's Hope. It's very simple, Harbor's Hope, one word. And we sell everything from CDs to DVDs to games, so you name it, we probably have it. And I vow, and I put in each package a letter that is from me that tells that 100% of all profits that I make no salary. 100% of all profits that I make go toward helping other people through the transplant stage.
That is completely awesome. Yeah.
People say you'll never do it. Oh, you can't make any money. How much you give them this year? $1,000? Well, let's just put it this way. On December the 31st, when we reconciled our books over the year of 2019, I haven't got 2020 done yet. I'm trying to forget that year at all. But in 2019, we'd given over $12,000 worth of help.
Tremendous
to people. And I'm hoping to double and triple that this year. So far, sales have been good. And that's, every time I hear a ching-ching on my phone, I know that I'm one step closer to helping somebody.
You're helping someone. I'm sitting here right now looking across. I want to throw this out. This is unrelated, but similar to what you're talking about. I save all my medicine bottles. Everybody wants to know, what do you do with these medicine bottles? You pull the label off, you rinse them out, you fill them up with quarters. And it is a gift. It is a tremendous encouragement. And I'm not bragging on me, because I've been suggested this by others, and I share it. You take that medicine bottle in quarters, and we don't get to do it as much with COVID regulations, but you could, and you walk into a patient room and you hand them that when there's a family member sitting there that hadn't had a bite to eat and who knows how long, because the best shot they got is the snack machine that doesn't take their dollar, that's what, or whatever. It's huge. And you talk about the parking. That's a huge deal. $16 a day is peanuts to us on the outside.
We've done things as crazy, Jim, as I had one lady that her husband was in having the process done, and he was actually having an LVAD and they were trying to talk him into doing a gastric sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gotten in really good with my doctors, and whenever they have a patient like that, they parade me in and we do our little dog and pony show to convince them that it's going to be okay. You know, look at me, it's going to be great. And I always take a shirt that I used to wear, a size 6L, and it was tight. And today I wear it XL and it's loose. So, you know, you can always see them when they look at you and look at that and look at you. It's like, man, is this really going to happen? But it's the greatest thing in the world to be able to go in and talk to somebody that's going through the process and just ease their fear. I mean, to say yes, I never lie to them, and I always tell people, I will not lie to you about this. There will be days that you will hate yourself, you will hate the doctors, you will hate anybody that's ever come into your life. You will hate. But trust me, those days are so far and few between that you don't remember them, because when it starts clicking and you start feeling better, and I love to fish, and you go out and you bait that first hook and you throw it in the water, you catch that first fish, it's all worth it.
Yes, for sure.
You know, I've had people say, but I can't work on my car. I can't go fishing. I can't go to a buffet anymore. No, you can't at first. You can't. But it's like a little baby learning to walk. Mm-hmm. They don't get up and jog a half a mile the first day. They crawl. And once they've crawled, then they progress on and on and on. That's how it is with our transplants.
Yes. There's
so much we can't do at first, but the longer we've had them, and the more biopsies we've had that are come back, knock on wood and praise God and everything else, I've never had a rejection. That you have that, you get to do more and more and more.
Yes.
And now it's like I live life. I go in once a year, maybe twice a year if I have to, but once a year for sure. Do my annuals, go through the biopsy. You know, he'll tell me, well, I like this, I don't like this, do that, and we make adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
So it really isn't a hard thing. It's that mindset is, do I want to live or not?
Yes.
If you're the type of person that doesn't care if they live or not, then you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
If you're that type of person that has the will to live, I particularly have a will to live, then you fight through it all.
Yeah.
No matter what happens.
Yeah. Surround yourself with good people who will help you keep the positive attitude and move forward. What is your best piece of advice then? Last question. What is your best piece of advice you would give to someone who's either waiting or shortly out of transplant?
Don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you do, don't give up. It's like everything else in life. There will be bad times. There will be good times. But if you don't give up and you follow their directions, don't become a doctor yourself. You know, follow their directions. They know what they're doing, typically. Sometimes you wonder if they do or not, but typically they know what they're doing. They've been through it. They've seen it. They know the symptoms. I make a habit. I do not take any kind of medicine, drugs, vitamins, or anything without running it through my coordinator.
Yeah,
you're assigned a coordinator for life, and they change quite often, but you're assigned a coordinator, and they're there to help you, for you to ask. And it's real simple. I make one phone call. His name is Christopher. Hey, Chris, can I do this? Can I do that? Well, Mr. Harbour, I'd rather you not, but yeah, okay, you know. So it's just easy. Yeah. But the only advice I would say is don't give up.
Amen.
Give up, there's no chance for you.
Well, Ron, I don't think you have at this point. Maybe you progressed this. I know you've grown. but I don't think you got give up in you. So I definitely appreciate you talking with us today. I've been more than thrilled. You and I've been trying to catch up with each other for several weeks now, and
Yes, yes, sir.
I have made a huge mistake that I didn't stop what I was doing and clear the calendar and get this done earlier, because I have definitely been blessed by hearing your story today. You're an inspiration to me and so many others, and so I just want to say one last time, thank you so much.
Before you sign off, and we all sign off, I want to give you a shout of thanks, because I know that you're told this a lot and all, but you don't understand what you're doing for everybody that's out there that will take the time to listen to you, because some of the topics that you come up with, I would never think to even talk about, and yet you do. And the ones that you came up with the other day, it's been a while, on finances. Mm-hmm. It was like, I never thought about that. You just don't think about it until somebody brings it up. And Jim, you do a marvelous. And then when I heard that you had gotten COVID, my heart sank. I still to this day Carla could tell you that I was just not a nice person to be around there for a few hours, because it's like, how can this happen? This guy that's so careful with himself and is trying to do so much good for mankind, how can this disease hit him? And then when you came back on, and I, watched your little series there, and you came back on, you said, I'm feeling okay now. It was like, all right.
I had a lot of people praying for me and cheering for me and encouraging me. So
definitely we were. But I do appreciate all that you do, Jim.
Well, thank you, Ron. You're definitely appreciated, and thank you so much for being with us today. Let me throw this in as a commercial of sorts. If you would love to tell your story, I would love to help you do that. And so if you want to give me send me a message over on Facebook, a comment underneath this video. What else can you do? You can text me. That would be absolutely great. If you text me, my number is 256-733-1214. That's my personal cell number. Go ahead and text me, and let's get this conversation started, because I would love to help you share your story. And if you, one more time, if you are at all interested in the possibility of organ donation, would like to consider it, reach out. Reach out to pretty much any medical facility around, but particularly reach out to those places that are labeled for such. And hey, you go in for evaluations and free estimates on everything else in life. Sit down and learn more about organ donation, and you just might save a life like mine or Ron's or who knows. But thank you so much for joining us today. And Ron, to you and everybody else that's watching, stay stronger, friends.